Today's podcast is brought to you by Chikara Wrestle Factory, 4711 Wingate Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where they specialize in lucha libre, puro-su, British, European, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling, all built into the curriculum at the Wrestle Factory. That's where they strive to create the most well-rounded performers active today. Hey, yo! Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out, click subscribe, and show your support. This is our 50th episode, and we need all the support we can get. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 50th episode, the Big 50 of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. I cannot believe we're already at episode 50. I'm so happy to announce that we have got more viewership in the last week than we've ever had in the history of our podcast. Thank you to the loyal listeners. You guys are awesome. You rock. You make this so much fun to do. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate every single person who tunes in. We were made aware this week that we have an audience in Germany. We have an audience in Italy. We have an audience in Australia, in India, and in Guam. I don't know how that happens because I have been horrible at promoting this thing outside of our normal YouTube spaces and things like that. But to all those people in far off places who are popping in and listening to this podcast, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you people from all over the world. And I can actually say that. Thank you to all of our listeners all over the world tuning into our podcast. You guys are amazing, and you make this so rewarding. And I'm so glad you like what you're hearing. So, let's get to the episode for today. For podcast episode 50, I actually wish I had more things to talk about. Not that we don't have anything, we have plenty, but I wish I had more, because I'm just elated that I got that report today that we listening from so many different places. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that would have happened. So thank you to all of you. Today's news, let's get kicked off with a serious situation. Jim Ross, good old JR. He is in a bad way right now. His wife was in a very serious car accident. She is in critical condition, and what is being reported is that there is swelling of the brain and that they need that swelling to go down so that she can make it through this difficult, challenging time. For those people who think that Jim Ross is just an announcer, for the younger audience out there who didn't get the benefit of all the years and the wealth of knowledge that he has shared throughout his career in the wrestling world, one thing that always meant the world to me, and I actually sent a message to JR's Barbecue webpage tonight, letting him know how I felt. Jim Ross, it wasn't just about being a play-by-play guy. It wasn't just about being an announcer when I listened to him call a match. The reason I get so into Jim Ross calling matches is you can feel a certain level of energy, a happiness in his voice, an excitement to do what he does, and it has always been that way. Going back to Mid-South Wrestling, into the UWF, into the NWA, WCW, to the WWE. He has always just been a positive force, and you cannot convince me that a person can have that much positive energy and be so influential without having an amazing person behind them. In this case, his wife. And no matter what anybody says, every powerful man in this world has a partner behind them that drives them. And I can't believe, no matter what anybody says to me, I can't believe anything but his wife must be an amazing woman. So all of my family and all of my listeners, I ask them all to go out and give all their prayers and thoughts to the Jim Ross family in hopes that she can make a recovery, not just any recovery, a speedy recovery. And please don't forget to say a prayer for Jim Ross so that he can have some peace of mind and just be able to relax in this challenging time. I'm going to move on with a couple other items for tonight. We're going to start in the WWE world. Mick Foley, now that he's got his television role has expired here and he's been fired from Raw, he made a comment about dream matches he'd be interested in having, and if he was able to return to the ring, which he made very clear he's not able to return to the ring, but if he was able to, he would love to have just one more go around with Triple H. Now, I think that was pretty obvious from the tease that we had face-to-face at the end of Raw. It's a wonderful thought, something that obviously will never happen, but for any fan who can look back at the history of the World Wrestling Entertainment Company as a whole, in the late 90s, Mick Foley and Triple H really could tear the house down. For all the things that some people in different books and different media have said that Mick Foley was a glorified stuntman falling on tacks and things like that, I believe that was Ric Flair's book said something to that effect. And there have been other people critical of Mick Foley's wrestling ability. When you watch Mick Foley and Triple H get in a ring, they could tear the house down. And just hearing his statement made me reflect today. I actually pulled out my old 2008 copy of Triple H King of Kings. If you've never seen it, go ahead on YouTube. You could probably find it. Find the site that has it available. But in that DVD compilation about Triple H's career, there's a whole retrospective that he does towards Mick Foley, talking about how important Mick Foley was to him, and they show the match where he wins the World Championship from Mick Foley. It's amazing to me how far we've come in such what really, in the grand scheme of things, is a short period of time, and it would be wonderful to see Mick in the ring. He did make mention, I have to throw this in there, that his other dream match would be the Foleys versus the McMahons. He and Noel going against Triple H and Stephanie. I actually would love to see that, or even Vince McMahon and Stephanie. I'd be all in for that too. So, you know, Mick Foley just making waves today, even though he's no longer the Raw general manager, still keeping himself relevant in the news. Speaking of WWE Hall of Famers in the news, Jerry Lawler, he has this podcast, Dinner with the King, and he made an interesting statement. A lot of people have been wondering why, when you go on the WWE Network, you see so much old footage from various promotions, World Class Championship Wrestling, the NWA, the AWA, various collections, Mid-South Wrestling. What you don't see is anything from Memphis. You don't see anything from the Continental. You don't see anything from USWA. Well, apparently Jerry Lawler, the highest percentage of that video library from the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s into the mid-90s, and then there's a little piece of time in between there. Actually, I think it's from like 88 to 96 he said he does not have the rights to, but then everything from 96 on. So a big chunk of the 70s, 80s, early 90s, and then the late 90s all belongs to Jerry Lawler, and he has made it clear that at some point the Memphis Wrestling video library will be available on the WWE Network. Now, I do know that when the Mid-South content was added and the UWF content was made available, that was a huge dispute between Bill Watts and his wife, who owned the library, and a divorce agreement that the two had at some point. And WWE eventually did get the opportunity to feature that content. I can't imagine. I know that that library itself sold for a huge amount of money, and I would imagine that this one would sell for at least that much, if not more, considering the vast amount of time we're talking about here that the Memphis wrestling scene took up. So hopefully at some point you guys will see that on the network. There are some amazing matches on there. Early career matches of people like King Kong Bundy, Ravishing Rick Rude, Austin Idol, Bill Dundee, Exotic Adrian Street, Jesse the Body Ventura, like just a who's who of 80s wrestling personalities, and of course Jerry the King Lawler. You could see him in all his glory as his career evolved. So hopefully we'll see that on the network sooner than later. I'm going to move on to ESPN First Take, where they did an interview with Triple H, and he had some comments about what he's looking for when he's going out looking for talent. It was a great interview. There's all sorts of other parts to it. I encourage you to go check that out. But in the one particular section, he says, it is always charisma. Charisma is king, and it's what I'm looking for more than anything. When we're looking for talent, we bring in a lot of great athletes. Sometimes they're in phenomenal shape. Sometimes they kill the tryout environment. But we're looking for charisma. We're looking for that person that walks in the room and everyone turns around and goes, wow, who's that? We're looking for that natural leader. When they're exhausted in the tryout and they're picking everyone up, they're the leader. That's emergent just naturally. Those are the people we're looking for, because at the end of the day, those are the people that can captivate a crowd and they can get you involved. And this is not a knock, but in the kind of exact opposite way that the NFL wants things to be about teams and about the individual players. We're the opposite. We want you to be as large as you can be, captivate the crowd, make your brand, be who you can be, because when you're successful at that, you make the WWE successful at that. If you become the John Cena, The Rock, great for everyone. I thought that was an amazing quote from Triple H. It tells people who have aspirations for going into professional wrestling what it is they're looking for. It is not always about the perfect body, though that probably helps. It's not always about being able to walk and talk. It's not always about being able to get on the mic and cut a promo. And I think a lot of people go into this thinking that's what it's all about. It's not. It's more than that. You got to be the one when you walk in the room that the heads turn. That when you step into the ring, it doesn't matter how good you are at the beginning. What matters is, are you grabbing people's attention? Are you making them look at you? When you're hurt, when you're down, when you're beat up, when you're just ready to give up, are you picking yourself up and still giving it 100% effort? And that's what true stars do. And if you look at the who's who of who has been successful in WWE over the last several years, all of those personalities, if you meet the people in person, a lot of times they really are versions of their character, just the character is turned up a lot, but they're real people who are just grasping the major role. So if you're one of those aspiring people, keep that in mind when you go for a tryout to get into one of these organizations. If that's what WWE is looking for, I can promise you the other promotions are looking for something much the same. So keep that in the back of your mind. A major sticking point right now, it's shifting gears a little bit, with the Hardys. We said yesterday and the day before, negotiations for a potential return to WWE. Well, there is a stumbling block. There is a concern. The issue is the schedule. You know, the number of dates that they'd have to work each year. They don't want Maxell. They don't want Senior. They don't want any of that. They don't want Rebby. They want the Hardys. And the problem is the Hardys at this stage of their career, they're making a lot of good money on the independent circuit, booking whatever schedule they want. Coming to WWE and working a full-time schedule, that is not something they're interested in. If you can think about it like this, Matt Hardy has a small child, King Maxell, and he's got another one on the way. He is now a family man. He does not want to be on the road 350 days a year. He doesn't want to be on the road 200 days a year. So this could be the thing that delays this negotiation. However, every media outlet I could find, whether it was WrestleZone, Wrestling Inc., the Wrestling Observer, all of them have the same opinion. This is not a matter of if it happens, but when it happens. So I'm fully expecting the Hardys to be back in WWE in short order. On Talking Smack, after SmackDown, the new SmackDown Tag Team Champions had a really cool little tidbit in their interview. They claim they want to face the best of the best, and they actually called out by name the Bullet Club. And then after they said that, they clarified and said Gallows and Anderson, we want to face them in a tag team title unification match. That sounds great, but you just slipped up and said the Bullet Club on Talking Smack. The thing I love about that is it makes Talking Smack seem almost organic in a way. It's kind of like a throwback to that Saturday Morning USA Network thing where they had Doc Hendricks, even though everybody in the world knew it was Michael Hayes, and they had Vince Russo as Vic Venom, and Sunny was just Sunny. I don't know why she didn't get some corny name, but they had the three of them on in the morning, and they would do these like shoot, phone call, interview type things. That's kind of what Talking Smack is starting to sound like. So this was cool to me because it showed that they're obviously aware of the Bullet Club, and you just never know who's coming in the next few years, and I would love to see them go head to head with the Gorillas of Destiny. That would be awesome. Natalya has been announced as the inductor for Beth Phoenix into the Hall of Fame. No surprise there. Natalya was a big part of Beth Phoenix's success when she was still in the WWE. Some people were like, why isn't Edge inducting his wife? A little too corny, man. Give her spotlight. If Edge walks out there, he's going to get a huge pop. I'm not saying Natalya won't, but it's not going to be an Edge pop. Let her go out there. Let Beth Phoenix suck up her moment. Hopefully the fans will be respectful. I know there's some people who think she's going in a little quickly. I actually am one of them who thinks she's going in quickly, but that doesn't detract from the fact that I think she's worthy of going in. I think she is. I think there are other female wrestlers that probably should have been in before her. That's my only concern. But moving on, 205 Live, results from that. We didn't post those last night. We're going to throw them in here right now. Neville opens the show with an interview. He's demanding a match with Mustafa Ali. He's going to show the division why he is the king of the cruiserweights. At this point, we kind of expect him to shoot his mouth off once a week. This was his once a week. And we're going to see that match later in the show. That's actually going to be the main event of the show. Tony Nese has a match against TJ Perkins. This match went forever, and you could just tell the crowd wasn't into it. It's not because there was a lack of quality of the wrestling was fine, but it just went too long. Tony Nese ends up winning the match. He hits a suplex onto the exposed turnbuckle and then hits a running knee, and he beats TJ Perkins. It's sad to see where TJ Perkins has fallen to from being cruiserweight champion and really exciting, this video game type of character, and now he's just getting beat by everybody. But Tony Nese's character takes a little bump up, and that's something I think is important because I fully expect Austin Aries to walk out of Mania with that championship, and Tony Nese would be a great opportunity to work with going forward. Drew Gulak cuts a promo in the back. I don't know what his issue is, complaining about all essentially the high spots that make 205 Live fans pop. I don't know what he's looking at here. That's the whole point of the show. You know, creating a storyline about complaining about the fundamental purpose of your division is probably not a great political move if you're trying to further the brand. It's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Maybe Vince has got some crazy plan in the back, but I would not have him cutting that promo. Alex Reynolds is going to get destroyed by Akira Tozawa. I mean, this is one of the fastest matches you'll ever see. Quick German suplex for the win. After the match, though, Tozawa is looking for Kendrick, and as he's going up the exit ramp, he gets attacked by the Brian Kendrick, dressed in a security guard outfit, who vocalizes that this is lesson number 8, that appearances can be deceiving. I'm so over these lessons that he's teaching. I'm like, get on with the wrestling, okay? Just get it over with. It's been going on for a month and a half now. I don't need 8 weeks of lessons. We've all seen every angle that you're playing. So for you to imply that he didn't already know these things, a little ridiculous. Noam Dar and Arya Daivari are in the back. They come in and interrupt Rich Swann and Jack Gallagher. I'm not even going to go into this. This is one of the most ridiculous storylines ever. This whole thing with Alicia Fox and giving gifts and a dress and all this, and he's not going to give a dress this week or whatever. Like, that's another storyline that they need to move on from. It's boring me to death. Austin Aries, cool moment of the night. Austin Aries interviewing himself about Neville. I'm not going to go into the whole interview. If you want to see it, check out the 205 Live on the WWE Network. But Neville comes out and interrupts the promo, and he has all this anger and frustration, and now he's got to go to the ring to face Mustafa Ali. And while he's doing that, Austin Aries is going to go do commentary, which I don't care who you compare people to. Austin Aries, in the short time that he's done commentary, clearly has a future in that whenever his in-ring career comes to an end, because he is phenomenal on the mic. In the main event, Neville's going to go over Mustafa Ali, and that's what you expect. However, Mustafa Ali looked awesome. He hit so many moves in this match. He looked like a legit contender. And after burying him for the better part of the last 3 weeks, I love that they let him showcase some of his natural talent. This is something we want to see. Cultivate new stars. Neville's been there for a little while. Ali's relatively new. This was good for Ali going forward. Of course, Neville picks up the win. He puts the Rings of Saturn on for the submission win, but it was a great way to wrap up 205 Live. Some independent news for the fans out there who love the independent scene. Zack Sabre Jr., you know he's going to be at Evolve 82 and 83 over WrestleMania weekend. His opponents for those 2 dates have been announced. At Evolve 82, he'll be taking on Drew Galloway, and at Evolve 83, he'll be taking on Lio Rush. Don't forget, the first WWN champion will be determined at the WWN Super Show that takes place on April 1st in Orlando, WrestleMania weekend. The first ever WWN champion will be the winner of what they're calling the Battle of the Champions elimination match. In that match, you're going to see Drew Galloway take on Fred Yee versus John Davis versus Paro versus Matt Riddle versus Tracy Williams. Very cool match, elimination style rules. I'm not sure who's going to come out champion. I know they've been hyping Drew Galloway quite a bit. I would not be surprised to see Fred Yee actually go over in this match, or Matt Riddle. They're both doing really well on the independent circuit right now, so it'll be cool to see how they choose who's going to be the first flagship bearer of WWN. The indie intros for this episode. Don't forget what we're doing here. We're taking this segment to have 3 promotions every week or every episode for you, for the diehard fans to go out and find more wrestling action that you were not familiar with and get acclimated to some of these smaller promotions. So today we're going to 3 places. The United Kingdom for LDN Wrestling. When you go to YouTube, I give you a company and I give you a YouTube search so you could see some of this action for yourself. If you do a YouTube search for LDN London I-46, Matt Walters versus Damian Dunn, spelled the same way as Pete Dunne in WWE, you'll see a great match. These guys really do a great job of selling for a very small promotion, but it's just one more promotion adding to that wonderful talent pool in the United Kingdom scene. In Japan, we've been talking a lot about Japan lately. Oz Academy. Oz Academy is a predominantly female organization. Look up on YouTube, look up Oz Academy, Hanako Nakamori versus Yumi Oka. Again, solid women's wrestling action. This gives you you could see where people like Asuka and other Japanese talents get their start when you look at some of these smaller promotions in a place like this. The Oz Academy puts out great product. The production value, similar to some of the smaller promotions in North America. I'm not going to say it's stellar, but this match in particular, it's obvious there's some real talent over there. Our third promotion is in Mexico. Toriumon, which is a promotion owned by Ultimo Dragon. And the match I want you to look up is Ultimo Dragon, then the letter Y, because it's written in Spanish, Ultimo Dragon y Atlantis versus Ultimo Guerrero y Rey Bucanero, and Toriumon, Toryumon. When you pull that up, you're going to get to see Ultimo Dragon's promotion, a much smaller promotion in Mexico, but they're putting together some great shows. And when you see Ultimo Dragon, Atlantis, Ultimo Guerrero, and Rey Bucanero, if you don't know who any of those people are, Ultimo Guerrero and Rey Bucanero were like stalwarts of CMLL for a very long time. Ultimo Dragon, for old WCW and even WWE fans, he has held virtually every light, heavyweight, cruiserweight, lightweight, whatever you want to call the championships that are found anywhere in the world. He's the guy who walked out with like 9 championship belts on WCW TV back in the early and the mid 90s. So check those out, those 3 promotions: LDN Wrestling, Oz Academy, and Toryumon. This day in pro wrestling history, 18 years ago, Steve Austin drenches Vince McMahon, The Rock, and Shane McMahon in beer all over the place, destroys the ring with the beer. This is one of those classic moments that you see on replay after replay after replay. That was 18 years ago, and on that same show, it was the in-ring debut of Paul White, also now known as The Big Show, as he fell to Stone Cold Steve Austin. 13 years ago, Ring of Honor presents Night of Champions in Philadelphia, featuring Samoa Joe defeating Xavier for the Ring of Honor World Championship, which launches his historic 645-day reign with the title. Nobody could beat Joe for a couple years. This is the longest reign in Ring of Honor history and one of the longest reigns in wrestling history. I mean, we're not talking about the 1970s with Bruno Sammartino having an 8-year reign or anything like that, but we're talking about in modern wrestling era. Championship transitions are a popular thing with the fans. It's really hard to give a guy a championship for 645 days. Ring of Honor trusted Joe to run their company, to be the figurehead of their company, and he did a great job. So, looking back at that, that is monumentally important in the history of Ring of Honor. Also, 13 years ago, the first WWE draft lottery was held, featuring Paul Heyman going head-to-head with Eric Bischoff, drafting counts to their respective shows. If you remember back then, Bischoff was heading up Raw, and Heyman was heading up SmackDown. This was a cool draft that actually at the end of the show had Paul Heyman drafted to Raw, where he ended up quitting because he said he would never work for Eric Bischoff. Cool angle. There was plenty of talent swapped back and forth, but it was kind of ludicrous. At one point, Triple H was drafted to SmackDown, but then the next night, Kurt Angle was the acting GM, and he traded the Dudley Boys and somebody else to get him, Booker T and the Dudleys. He traded to SmackDown just to get Triple H back to Raw. In reality, in the back, Triple H probably just didn't want to work Tuesdays, as Paul Heyman would say at One Night Stand a couple years later. 7 years ago, Jeff Jarrett defeats Mick Foley in a no disqualification career versus career ending match. Mick Foley ends his run with TNA Wrestling with a killer match with Jeff Jarrett, and this was just one more of the times where we thought Mick Foley was just going to disappear for a while and not do anything significant. Who would have thought he would come back to WWE and make such a huge impact? I actually have loved Foley's work for the better part of the last year. I think he's been great in the role that he's been in. Hopefully they find something creative for him to do. To be honest with you, on Monday night, I would have loved for the angle to be where they fire Foley, and in a couple weeks after he gets his surgery and give him a month or two to heal, if he came back and was a manager for Sami Zayn. Because they can fire you as a talent, but I'm not your talent. I'm the Paul Heyman's the advocate. You could be the manager for Sami Zayn. That's just something I would do. The look back match for today: Maple Leaf Wrestling, Ricky Steamboat versus Roddy Piper. I chose this for a very specific reason. Some things in wrestling drive me insane, and I love Roddy Piper. God rest his soul. He's a wonderful guy, and in person he's very, very friendly. But in this particular match, this match was recorded in 1982. So in March of 82, and then if you fast forward several years, WrestleMania 8 is when he wrestled Bret Hart. Now, if you go back and watch the Bret Hart documentary or the Roddy Piper documentary, Born in Controversy or whatever it was called, both of those, when they get to the Bret Hart match at WrestleMania 8, they talk about how for 17 and a half years, nobody had pinned my shoulders to the mat. This match took place in 1982. And in 1982, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, then just known as Ricky Steamboat, wins the match clean with a pinfall off the turnbuckle. I'm not trying to ruin the match for you, but I just don't like it when wrestlers overhype their success. Andre the Giant hasn't been defeated in 15 years. Yeah, he really had. He held the Florida Tag Team Championship with Dusty Rhodes, and they did lose those titles at some point, so they lost. He may have been the one who got pinned, but that wasn't what people said. They say he didn't lose for 15 years. Not exactly the case. So I just, whenever I hear one of those types of stories, and I was just watching the documentary for Bret Hart the other day, and it just rubbed on my nerves just a little bit. We're going to move into our fantasy booking time. Here's our 64-man tournament. We're getting to the end of our first round, and we've got a couple more matches for you. So last night we were talking about the matches between Shinsuke Nakamura and Jeff Jarrett, and the Great Khali and Rey Mysterio. Well, tonight we've got two more for you. very bizarre one to start, and one that is just a matchup of two guys who are known to be heavy hitters, throwing heavy lumber. So, match 29, Bobby Lashley versus the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Both in their prime. You got to remember this about the tournament. I want you thinking about these wrestlers in their prime. Match 30, Vader, Big Van Vader, whatever version of Vader you want, versus Montanza Cueto, who on Lucha Underground is this unstoppable monster. The two guys with the masks. That's why I put them together. So, on YouTube, go into the comment link. Tell me which two guys you have winning those matches. I'll tabulate your votes and move your choice on to the next round. And in that same section, don't forget today's YouTube fan poll. Who would you pair up as a tag team right now, two singles wrestlers, to help bolster the SmackDown tag team division? Now, it's kind of a vague question. I don't care if you take two SmackDown talents, if you take two people from Raw and trade them to SmackDown, if you want to take people from NXT and move them up. But I don't want an established tag team. I don't want you to tell me move Cesaro and Sheamus. I don't want you to tell me, move the New Day. Those things we can easily do. I want you to come up with your own tag team, something that has never been done before, and move them to SmackDown or elevate them on SmackDown and see who you would promote to be the next tag team to bolster the tag team division. Don't forget about the Fro Life Planning Contest. For those of you who don't know what the Fro Life Planning Contest is, we help students and adult learners find their path to either higher ed or a new career. Go to college, go to university, or get a job. Every month we give away one free 30-minute one-on-one phone consultation to one lucky winner to aid in their planning of that path or to that next step. There's no purchase necessary. You got to follow a couple steps to qualify. Go to iTunes, launch iTunes in your computer, pull up the Fro Wrestling Podcast iTunes page, click subscribe, then write us a review. Once you submit that, shoot over to our webpage at www.frolifeplanning.com/contest and put your email in there to be entered for the chance to have one of those one-on-one phone consultations to aid you in your higher ed planning. That's all the time we have for this episode. I can't believe we're already at the end of episode 50. Coming up in episode 51, more happenings in the world of professional wrestling. Special thanks, as always, to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all of our music and sound effects used throughout today's show. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, and we encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you on your path to higher education. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. If you're looking for some more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsjsports.com/WWE for my latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. One last time this episode, thank you to our loyal listeners. Thank you to the biggest audience we've ever had. Thank you for 50 wonderful episodes, and they couldn't be here, and I couldn't be doing this without the support of such a large group of amazing people. You guys are the bomb. Thank you so much, and have a great night.